This happened quite a few years ago when I was a relatively young and sheltered high school student, probably 15 years old. Some of my close girlfriends and I decided to go to the drive-in movie theater one night, where they show two movies in a row, and the whole shebang ends pretty late at night, probably around 1 a.m. or so. The five of us all drove in my friend Aaron's car, and as we were putting the seats down and setting the back of the car up with blankets and pillows, Aaron recognized a guy, David, that she had met a few times because he worked at her gym. He was at the drive-in alone, not necessarily weird, just not something many people did in my town, and came over to our car to chit-chat. Immediately, one of my other friends, Corinne, took a liking to this guy and began flirting up a storm. It wasn't long until Corinne invited him to watch the movie with us, inside Aaron's car. It also wasn't long until this David guy offered us, 15 to 17-year-olds, alcohol, which we accepted. Looking back now, what a red flag. I was wary of this David character, as he appeared a lot older than us and gave me somewhat of a weird vibe. But since Aaron seemed to know him, and my friends weren't acting alarmed, I didn't give it too much thought. We're not even 15 minutes into the movie, and I am just too uncomfortable to be enjoying myself. 6 people crammed into the back of one car, and Corinne and David cuddling and flirting and who knows what, underneath the blankets made me want to get out of there ASAP. So when David suggested that me and my 3 remaining friends could watch the movie in his car while he stayed in Aaron's car and canoodled, I jumped to take him up on the offer. David's car was a small sedan with little room, so we had to sit in the seats normally, as if we were about to ride in the car. Although I was a little uncomfortable sitting in the driver's seat with the steering wheel between me and the screen, I was glad to finally have some personal space. That all changed when I dropped my phone, and it landed somewhere underneath the driver's seat. While blindly reaching underneath to find my phone, I grabbed onto a hard object that I realized was a lot heavier than my iPhone when I began to lift it up. To my complete and utter surprise, I realized it's a gun. I had never seen a real-life gun before at that point in my life, so it could have been fake or a BB gun or whatever else. But it looked real, felt real, and was hidden underneath the driver's seat for easy access. It freaked me out because even if it was a fake gun, what could he be intending to use it for besides intimidation? For whatever reasons, my friends didn't find this as startling as I did, and they managed to calm me down and concluded the best thing to do was just to put it back underneath the seat where I found it. That was fine with me, as I didn't plan on ever being in this car again once the movie was over, and definitely didn't plan on being in the car when David was in it, ever. The rest of the 2 movies went by fine. We're drinking the beer that this David character so kindly provided to us and having a fun time. It's late by the time the second movie ends, and I'm ready to get back to our friend Erica's house where we were sleeping for the evening. I hop out of David's car, ready to get back into Aaron's car when I see Aaron's car already driving away. Corinne pops up and cheerfully announces, "David has offered to drive us home. How nice of him, right?" Having no other way to get home, being slightly intoxicated, and watching the rest of my friends pile into the car, I followed suit, even though I had my hesitations. David sat in the driver's seat, I sat behind David, and Corinne sat shotgun, beginning to play her signature Justin Bieber playlist through the speakers. The car ride started out normal enough, with Erica giving directions to her house, Corinne not paying attention to anything but her Bieber, and me feeling uneasy and hyper-aware of the situation. As we are approaching Erica's house, David asks us if we have time to take a quick drive up to the reservoir, which was located on the outskirts of town, very isolated and surrounded by heavily wooded areas. It's probably close to 2 a.m. at this point. The only person who even slightly knew this random man has left us, and I know there is a very real-looking gun underneath the seat of this guy's car that he doesn't know I know about. So of course I say no. David just says, "We're going up to the reservoir." Confused and alarmed, I start politely protesting, saying we really don't have time. We're being expected at home, yada yada. But with every word I say, David turns the volume of the music up louder and louder, drowning out my voice and obviously ignoring me as he starts to head up the long, dark road that leads to the reservoir. I go into panic mode. Annoyed that none of my friends are doing anything, especially Corinne, who is still singing along to Bieber, I start to freak out. I decide that he can't take us up to the reservoir. He just can't. What if the gun is real and he threatens us with it, or worse? What if the gun isn't real but he still uses it to threaten us to do something? A million thoughts race through my head. I won't let him take us into a secluded area where any number of things could happen and no one could hear us. I decide if he is going to do something to us, I would rather risk it being there, in town, on a more populated road where our chances of survival or whatever were better. So I literally freak out. All sense of politeness I felt I needed to have is gone. I start kicking the back of his chair with both my feet, screaming at the top of my lungs that he needs to take us back now. I roll down the window and start shouting, trying to cause a scene, doing anything I can to try to stop this man from driving us up to the middle of nowhere. I don't stop kicking and screaming until he relents, almost scoffs and says, "Fine," as if I was some crazy lady completely overreacting to the situation. I don't care what he thinks. I am just relieved he has turned the car around and is actually taking us back to Erica's house. Once we get there and run out of the car, we wake up Erica's parents to let them know what happened since this guy now has one of our addresses. I didn't sleep that whole night, and my friendship with Corinne was irreparably damaged from her putting me in such a terrifying situation just because she had the hots for this guy. I am a shorter blonde female, and at the time of this story I was 15. I was a freshman in high school and had a friend named Gino I was super close with. More of a brother to me than a friend. Gino was a junior at the time and a varsity football player, so as you can guess, he was in pretty good shape and could be intimidating if needed. Anyways, it was a Thursday and Gino asked if I wanted to get dinner that evening after school, then see a movie. I said yes and told him I'd meet him at the theater around 6:30, so we could eat before the movie that started at 8 p.m. He obviously drove at that time but had to do some stuff after school, so I asked my mom to drop me at the theater to meet him. Fast forward to 6:30 and my mom drops me off at the theater and leaves. Gino isn't there yet and I get a text from him saying he was going to be a little late and would get there around 6:50 or whatever. I didn't know where we were going to eat yet, so I just sat down on a bench to wait for him. At the time, a brand new hamburger place had just opened right by the theater. About 2 minutes into waiting and texting on my phone, I am interrupted by a man who is probably about 6'2", white, brown hair, in his mid-30s, typical business-looking type. He said, "Are you lost?" I looked up at him startled, then obviously tell him no, I'm waiting for a friend to see a movie. He then proceeds to small talk with me, and although I'm already a little creeped out, I talk back to him since it's summer. It was April, but I live in Arizona, and April here feels like summer. And being 6:40-ish now, it's still light outside. He then proceeds to tell me he is the manager of the new hamburger place and asks if I want a job. First off, the fact he is asking a random girl if she wants a job is already strange, but I just turn him down saying, "Thanks, I already have a job." He then proceeds to start badgering me saying, "Come on, I can interview you right now and probably pay you more." Just to see what he would say, I asked him, "Okay, where would you interview me at a table inside the restaurant?" To which he answered, "No, it's too busy in there, we could just go around back." I may have been a naive-looking 15-year-old girl at the time, but I'm not stupid. I told him again, "Thanks for the opportunity, but no," hoping he would leave. He didn't. He now proceeded to tell me that he was actually in town with some friends and that he was staying in a nicer city in the state I live in, and asked if I wanted to go party with them tonight and I could stay the weekend. What happened to being a manager at this burger place? Clearly by now I know this guy is a creep, so I told him I was 15 and couldn't go out partying, my mom would kill me. Maybe he just thought I was older. He continued to press me on it, saying to just tell my mom I was staying with a friend, and kept asking me to walk over to the parking lot where his friends were so he could introduce me. By this point, I'm standing up trying to think of ways to get out of this situation. By the way, there's at least 10 people around since we're in public at a movie theater, but do you think one person noticed this 30-something-year-old guy creeping on a 15-year-old? Of course not. At this point, I noticed the man was getting a little irritated. He was almost demanding I just go with him to meet his friends. I wanted to get away from him, so I just said, "Sorry, I think my friend is here," and starting to walk away when he grabbed my wrist. Not kidding, this creep literally grabbed me in public like no big deal. He started pulling me all while saying I was going to meet his friends when, thank the stars, my friend Gino Miracli comes walking up. Gino asked what was going on, and the man drops my wrist and in a rude voice goes, "Who's this?" So from being scared, I said, "My boyfriend," hoping that if he hadn't already, Gino would get the clue that something wasn't right. The man gave me an evil glare and said, "I thought you said you were waiting for a friend, not a boyfriend." At this point, Gino pulled the tough guy act and started asking the guy what the hell he wanted and to get the fuck out of here. The man, without arguing, just power walked away towards the back of the burger place, acting all pissed off. Gino wanted to chase after him, but at that point I was shaken up and really just wanted to see our movie. Needless to say, I never saw the guy again, but to this day I think about what he wanted. If I was naive enough to go with him, would he have kidnapped me? Raped me? I have no clue, but seriously lucky I wasn't stupid enough to find out. Today I decided to take my two children, 5 and 8, to see a Sunday matinee at the movie theater. Secret Life of Pets 2 is nearly out of the theater, so we decided that would be our best bet to beat the crowds. We went to the 11:55 a.m. showing and stepped in a bit late to find we had the theater all to ourselves, and my kids were thrilled. I allow them to dance around if we are alone in the theater. If others are present, they have to be on their good behavior and stay seated and quiet. Since the movie is older, it was in a room in the very back of the building, far away from anyone or other rooms. The previews were still rolling when a man, I would say in his late 50s, stepped into the room. He immediately started looking my way as he walked to the row behind me and proceeded to sit down directly behind me. Literally the seat and row right behind mine when the entire theater was empty. Now, I know adults can sometimes want to go to a children's movie alone. I realize that alone doesn't make him creepy. However, my gut instinct was this is very bizarre. Toy Story or Lion King, sure, I would understand him being there. This is a very obscure movie and it's a sequel. Beyond that, why would anyone sit right behind me knowing it might look odd that they are even present at this movie in the morning on a Sunday? I immediately got up. I'm nearly 6 feet tall, and I'll admit I wanted him to see I'm no easy target. I moved to the other side of my children and turned so I was facing him. He looked extremely uncomfortable since entering the theater and was very fidgety. His foot was tapping, and I quickly snapped a picture of my kids with the camera focused on him. I moved my daughter to my lap so she was out of his reach and was racking my brain on my next move. I was in the very back of this building, with the sound blasting, and I had 2 small children with me. Alone in a huge room with one door leading out with this stranger. This guy was obviously a creep. You could just tell by his behavior and body language. I thought about complaining to management, but what was I even going to say? I mean, technically he has every right to be there, so I just kept my eyes on him. The movie started and he watched for a moment, glancing my way and at the screen repeatedly with his legs still bouncing nervously. I started to form an exit plan in my mind. A minute or two into the film, he got up and hurriedly raced towards the door. I waited a few, hoping he wouldn't return, and he didn't. I'm sure I was making him uncomfortable, turned and looking his way, but all I could think was, why would he sit directly behind me in this huge theater room? I wasn't even in the center of the theater, and my placement with the kids was very random and not an ideal spot to sit. He could have grabbed me from behind and ran with my kids. He could have been a pervert who wanted to take care of himself while watching my children and me. He never returned, but I'll never forget how he looked. As we left, I stopped by information to speak with the manager and another employee. The first thing they said after I showed them his picture and pausing was, there were only 3 tickets sold to this movie and we don't recognize him as someone who was at one of the other movies either. Those 3 tickets were for me and my children. The theater complex was completely dead. He had to walk by literally every other movie in this huge movie complex to get to the room. This one was in. It was late morning, and literally most of the other movies all started at this time. Trust your instincts. Even if you offend someone, I've learned the hard way you have to go with your gut. I don't know what could have happened today, and I still have chills thinking about it. It could have been someone movie hopping, but many other films started at that time. His seat choice and nervousness tell me otherwise.